You're very right. Better Kugad is not just a slogan. It's a campaign calling upon everyone, the government, private, international organizations, business entrepreneurs, individuals, schools, hospitals, everybody, to be alert, to be intentional when it comes to your data, personal data, and your data security. So it's calling upon each and everyone to take responsibility, to be intentional when it comes to the personal data that you collect, that you process, as you go about your business, as you go about your personal affairs.
Okay. So if I remember well, the Data Protection Act, I think, was enforced in 2019. Is this the act that put the Data Protection Office into force?
Yes, the Personal Data Protection Office was established by an act of parliament through the Data Protection and Privacy Act, now CAP 97. But that was in 2019, together with its attendant regulations, the Data Protection and Privacy Regulations that came into force in 2021.
Okay. Do you mind enlightening us on what influenced the need of this data protection law into force? Why was there a need for a data protection law in the first place?
The data protection law was driven by digital evolution. We all know that slightly before the just concluded pandemic and the lockdown, Uganda was very intentional, and the government made a decision to digitize the economy for purposes of, acquiring competitive advantage and be able to leverage beyond the borders of Uganda. We're a landlocked country, but we need to be able to compete and also participate in those regional markets, regional meaning Africa and beyond.
Yeah.
And beyond Uganda, beyond the borders of East Africa, Africa and beyond. The people that we are doing business with, partnership, collaborations with, are all data protection compliant. So the data protection law was driven by the need to digitize the economy. With digitization comes personal data. If you think through, for every decision you make as an individual, you have to factor in personal data. So personal data is now the new thing. It's now the new oil for every decision. And with digitization, if you're now to make an assessment, most of the services that the government gives to the citizens are electronic. Do you want to get a passport? Do you want to register a company? Do you want to, pay your taxes? When you're checking for the exam results of your child or a student, everything is now digital. So with the digital evolution, the technology, the emergency of AI comes personal data, which is a common denominator. So personal data had to come, and that brought about the data protection and privacy law.
Okay. So I'm aware that most of us are using data for various local and international sites, especially online. And just maybe for clarity, data protection, is it primarily overseeing digital data or even data in form of paper? This information we give into hospitals, writing our age, our blood group, and all those things that are just even on the physical paper, on the hard copy level? Or is it only the jurisdiction of the personal data protection is in the digital realm only?
It's not only in the digital realm. Data protection is diverse and it's not static. So you realize that data, personal data, has been, a thing even since we were thought of. But with the digitization of our economy, we know that electronic data moves very fast and it is exposed to a lot of risks. We know there's been a lot of abuse, misuse, people misunderstand, and hot news travels fast. And It is the personal data that exposes one to risk. So data can be manual, a piece of paper when I'm entering a certain building, I have to register my name somewhere and things like that. That's manual. Then electronically, when I entering a certain facility and I have to walk through maybe a scanner, or if I'm entering certain premises and you blink into a machine, you're identified. When you're at the airport, they use your fingers to capture some personal data. When you're in a hospital, most of the facilities around now, like Central Business District and beyond, Uganda as a whole, they have cameras that is all capturing personal data. Manual data is captured in schools. There is a lot of data that is collected through registration. But then electronically, you have a phone. You take pictures of your family members, of people. You take people's, personal credentials. All that is capturing personal data. So data can be collected manually and electronically. Okay.
So I understand that the provision of data sometimes guarantees you services, okay? You need health services, you need to give some information like your blood group or your age, in that nature. But I also want to understand, to what extent can I refuse to give my data? Does the law consider places whereby I can restrain myself from sharing data that I might think is not important to share?
Yes, that is your right as an individual. You have a right to opt out of disclosing personal data if you feel that personal data maybe is not relevant to the reason for its collection, whether electronically, whether manually. Ideally, for you to get a service, because nowadays, most of the services that we receive, like from the service providers, a case in example, the telecom service providers, government, they are kind of customized to suit your, your profile as an individual. So in order for that to happen, they have to understand you. That is why you're asked to disclose some personal data about you, such that they do not just dump a product or a service to you or to a certain community. They have to understand you, your profile, and then they'll try and customize something that is tailor-suited to meet your needs as a customer. So it's inevitable. You can opt out once you feel the reason for its collection is... But then there are situations where government needs to plan. The government needs to budget. It's inevitable. There are situations where it's do or die. You're in hospital. You're not able to maybe make decisions, but your personal data needs to be collected in order to save your life. So it depends. It's a case-by-case basis, but primarily you as an individual, you're a data subject and you have a right to say, no, I am not disclosing my personal data because I do not appreciate the reason you're giving me for its collection.
So now I've come to understand some of the sensitivities that come around having data shared, and also understanding the parameters that the law offers. But I also now want to understand what the Data Protection Office is doing to ensure that citizens' personal data is handled responsibly by both public and private institutions.
The Personal Data Protection Office, one, is charged with the responsibility of implementing the Data Protection and Privacy Act. And through that, we have a lot that we do, and some of the initiatives we have in place is create awareness, first and foremost, because for somebody to exercise their rights, they need to know their rights. So we partner, we do collaborations with both government, the private, international stakeholders to see that we create awareness, we build education, we sensitize the masses. We do this in the best way possible. We can do it electronically, we engage with a certain population, a certain audience to create awareness. Then we have also worked with some government ministry departments to see that they embed data protection and privacy in their policies, privacy by design. This means that you embed the Data Protection and Privacy Act into your policies as an organization right from the onset, not midway, or you consider it in some parts and not others. Data protection and privacy is supposed to be embedded right from the onset.
Okay.
So we create awareness, we enforce the law, we have a data protection register, we register all data controllers, data collectors, and data processors. Then we do audits, compliance audits, we do assessments.
The compliance audits are on the public institutions or the private ones, or all institutions?
All institutions.
Okay, so that means you're covering a wide scope.
It's a wide scope, one, but of course emphasis is placed on the government institutions. Reason being, government is the biggest data controller. The government needs personal data in order to plan and budget, and if they are to give you services, they need to know.
Okay. So, Edna, cognizant of the fact that there is also an access to information law, I think that's a 2005 law. So, how does the access to information law work with the data protection law? Because access to information enables citizens access public information quickly and freely. Okay? And then data protection is working more with personal data. How do these two laws work together, or they don't even meet in the first place?
These two laws do actually work together. They do complement each other. Access to information is a law that, gives an individual the right to be able to access information freely.
From the public institutions or even from anybody? Any
individual, all citizens, any individual, whether you're a civil servant, or whether you're a private entrepreneur, all citizens. Then the Data Protection and Privacy Act specifically deals with personal data. But we know that personal data is a subset of information, it's data. So access to information, first you need to know. When you have access to information, you use this information, you learn, you equip yourself with knowledge, you understand, to know. So when you know, you're able to distinguish between what is personal data and what is not personal data. So you're able to distinguish. And then with personal data, it's about accountability. You as an individual, responsible data protection, data handling practices.
Okay. Wow, you've outlined it quite superbly, and I appreciate that. So now I also want to understand, what are some of the mechanisms that the Personal Data Protection Office has in place in case there are breaches of some elements of this law?
Well, yeah, with any regime, breaches are natural, and breaches is going to happen. So nowadays we manage breach, we don't control breach. Breach is something that can happen out of an accident, an omission, or an action. So when breach happens, the law, the Data Protection and Privacy Act, stipulates procedures that are supposed to be taken in case you may be a data controller and breach happens. There are procedures. You are required, one, to inform the data protection and the office, the personal data protection office. Then to an individual who suffers breach, whereby you entrusted your personal details with a certain data controller or a certain data processor, and then your information is breached or is misappropriated. The law still has in place processes and procedures that are supposed to be taken. When you're aggrieved, what do? You lodge first and foremost a complaint with this office.
How? Do you have phone calls or online? Just enlighten us.
Yeah, there are several avenues. You can physically walk to our office and you lodge your complaint. There are service lines that somebody can use to call in. Then we do have social media handles. You can still reach out to us. Then for the people that have the small analog phones, there are still those
USSD codes.
Exactly, the codes that you, for the prompts that you can follow, and you lodge your complaint.
Or hotlines. Hotlines or USSDs? I think one of the two.
Yes, USSDs, not hotlines.
Okay.
There are several avenues. We have social media handles. You can physically walk in. You can call in. You can reach out to us.
Okay.
And once you lodge your complaint, there are procedures that are taken, statements, and the case proceeds. We don't work alone. We work with the justice, law, and order sector, whereby for a complaint, it is recorded, like the law spells, it is recorded by maybe a police officer, and once the file is completed, it is completed, it is submitted.
Okay. So I also want to ask, and then I also want to ask, how does the national strategy that you are implementing address data localization and cross-border data transfer, aware that East Africa is currently operating the Common Market Protocol? So we are trading with each other, we are trading information, we are trading a vast range of data with other countries within the region. How does the national strategy address data localization and cross-border data transfer?
Cross-border data transfer is a subject of discussion that is still ongoing regionally. Nationally, there's been a lot of benchmarking that is taking place, consultations, research. But as we speak right now, like we know, data is not limited to national, like the Uganda boundaries. It does not know, country boundaries. Within the blink of an eye, you can share data with somebody on another continent. And so because of that, cross-border data transfers are, there are definitely laws, there are principles, there are guidelines that govern how data should be transferred. Well, the law, first and foremost, recognizes and promotes data sovereignty. But then because there is no control over, data sharing, it's inevitable. There has to be some kind of integrity. So that is how the regional forums come into play to guide on harmonization and laws that, kind of harmonize with each other instead of conflicting with each other, to see that there should be data transfer across borders that is in harmony, that one respects the data subjects, it is transparent, there is integrity, and that is what is most important in the way this data is being transferred, and the rights of the data subject in respect to the data that is being transferred is respected.
Okay. Are there any cases that have been logged with the Personal Data Protection Office ever since the law came? You might not be specific on which cases, but just to understand how effective the law has moved so far since 2019 to 2025. That's about 6 years since. Yeah,
you're right. There are some cases that have been reported and decisions have been made. They just concluded case of Google. It's now public, and I would refer you to that case to go to read to understand. But we also do have some cases that are still under review, that are still under prosecution, and once a case is under prosecution, it is sub judice and we can't talk about it. But decisions have been made, and I would refer you to those so that you're able to understand the course that data protection and privacy has taken when it comes to the privacy of data subjects, irrespective of where you are.
Okay. As we come towards the conclusion of our interview, I just also still want to ask, how are small and medium enterprises being supported to improve their data protection capacity? Because they are also under the law, I think, considered as data collectors also.
Yes, small SMEs are actually heavy data processors. You realize that most of, in the private sector, these are guys that are tech savvy, and we are in the digital era, AI and so on. So to support this, we have partnered with some international organizations, one, to build capacity, and there are some that actually do work hand in hand with the government, but we build capacity, and we collaborate through forums to understand their challenges, to see how best they can be supported. These service providers will come to you to ask when they want to maybe plan and be able to budget for a product or a services. When you look at the financial sector, there are those, obligations by their mother regulator, KYC. We've gotten away from that stage of, I only go to the bank to maybe save my money and maybe get a loan. Nowadays, the bank comes to me and they will sell to me a product that has been tailor-made for my age bracket. It has factored in my salary pay grade. It has factored in my cultural profile, you understand, and what I like. So those are the products and services that they are bringing to us.
Yeah.
So for them to come up with something like that, that's personal data.
Okay.
The same personal data is required of you by the government, such that they can come up with a product or a service for your community, for maybe the youth, for the elderly, for the middle age, and things like that.
All right. Edna, we've come to the end of our interview, but I would like you to give a parting shot in regards to the current campaign that the Personal Data Protection Office is currently enrolling out.
Well, thank you. Better Kugad is a campaign. It's beyond a slogan. It's a call to action by each and everyone, irrespective of age, gender, your sex, whether you work for the government, whether you work for the private, whether you're a student, irrespective of who you are. The fact that you're a data collector, you use personal data for your business, in your work, in your ministry, we need to be held accountable for the data that we collect as data collectors. And most importantly, to me, to you, to each and every one of us, because each and every one of us is a data subject. Me as a person, I have personal data that has been collected by so many, both government, private, and beyond. So do I know my rights, and how am I exercising them? Am I intentional with my personal data? Do I just give it out, or I am intentional and I'm careful and I hold all the data controllers accountable? So to the data controllers, to the data subjects, better Kugad, be intentional. With the emergence of technology like AI, there's so much out there. And to the special category of the young generation, they heavily rely on personal data. Some of them are now doing, earning from that. We need to be intentional. We need to be accountable. We need to be transparent. There needs to be integrity in the way you handle the personal data that you come in touch with, and the personal data that we give out to all data controllers and processors.
All right. Thank you so much.